Hello, hello! Break out your Converse sneakers and crank up the MCR, because today we're revisiting some art from middle school. I'm very grateful to Past Me for carefully storing most of my old sketchbooks in a nice tote. While I have a ridiculous amount of sketchbooks to pick from, the thing that became an issue was dates. As a kid, and still today, I never date my work, which complicates trying to find drawings from a specific period of time. Unlike my childhood OC Lightning Girl, check out that video after this one, I don't have a strong memory of the different characters and stories I made from that time. Which is probably due to how much I was drawing. I was exploring lots of new ideas and processing new life experiences. Let's take a look at the 3 characters we're gonna redesign today. I can't remember if they were from the 6th or 7th grade, but I remember drawing them a bunch. I unfortunately don't really remember what their story was, but using the few sketches of these characters we have, and some vibes from the things I was into, I think we can piece together enough of a story for us to base our new designs on. In a world destroyed by demons, one girl is chosen by the celestial beings to save humanity. On her journey, our hero Koko befriends Ralt, a shy young man with a dark secret. The two work together to stop Lady Delanis, the evil leader of the demons. Alright, without further ado, let's get redesigning. Let's start with our heroine, Koko. First, I always like to redraw the original sketch out in my current style. Not only is it a nice way to see how I've grown and learned over the years, but it also acts as a nice baseline, so we're not just jumping from ancient doodle to big brain character design. Overall, Koko is very upbeat and energetic, even though she comes from a sad, desolate world. Some elements of her original design I want to work with in the new one are her super short hair and her cute little sailor collar. The first sketch stays pretty close to the original, but moving it into a more techwear aesthetic. I love looking at techwear fashion. All the pockets and the zippers always look so cool. I keep playing around with the outfit in little increments, but I wasn't feeling any of them and felt like this design needed a bit more of a push. To loosen up, I did a little silhouette exercise I'd learned in one of my classes. The idea is using a pretty thick brush and drawing the character out as a black blob. This allows you to think about the basic shapes of the design instead of diving straight into all the details. Using this method, I was able to pick a silhouette with a fun shape and draw the outfit from there. I add in a little color, and we're ready to move to our final illustration. Or are we? Real quick, I want to design her a cool sword. Using this sketch as my guide, I play around with some different ideas for the sword, while maintaining the general shape. Okay, now that we have our cool sword, we can actually move into the final illustration. I start by playing around with some different poses. I want her to be jumping and super energetic, so getting the pose right was key. Once I found a pose I loved, I moved into sketching. One of my favorite parts of Koko's design is her hair. I've always loved short hairstyles on anime girls, so getting to draw one is always a treat. Back in middle school was when I first got into Shin Megami Tensei games, and was super obsessed with Persona 3. Besides being an incredible game, and I highly recommend it if you're into JRPGs, it was my first experience with a dark story and designs, and boy was I into it. Aside from Persona 3, something else I was pretty into at the time was Black Rock Shooter. For those unfamiliar, Black Rock Shooter started out as a character design by an artist named Huke, which then became a song, and at least one video game, and multiple animes. Like Persona 3, it's got an overall dark atmosphere and lots of cool, edgy outfits. With her colors, I used a lot of the original purple, but added some more black to make her fit better with our other 2 designs. I make sure to keep white pretty prominent too, since she is our chosen hero after all. Also, I'm not quite sure how fighting with the sword would remotely work, but I think it still looks cool as heck. Though now that I'm staring at it, they do look a bit like oversized shears. What's your opinion? Let me know down in the comments. And just like that, our redesign of Koko is done. Oh, she came out so cute. I'm so happy I was able to keep the same classic anime design elements younger me used and still be able to make them work in a more fleshed out design. On to the next one. Next up is our scary villain, Lady Delanis. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not too sure what was up with my naming choices for these guys, but we're gonna just roll with it. In her original design, I made some interesting choices. Looking at the redraw of the original, I felt like she looked a little too normal and not enough evil, so I wanted to give her some more pizzazz. In the sketches, I tried a few different methods. A few details I know I want to keep are the horns, her super long hair, and her big skeleton arm. I used the bones as a theme for her and end up incorporating bones into all of the sketches. One idea I play around with is some spooky markings on her skin, as well as changing her sclera from white to black. Once I'm fairly confident in the direction I'm going, I started sketching the final illustration. I went back and forth on the size of her skeleton arm so many times, but I ended up going with slightly oversized. In the end, it's kind of hard to tell because of the angle I put it at, but I think it gets the point across. One detail I really liked from the sketches was the bangs in her eyes. I feel like having the black and red eyes, plus slightly obscuring them with the hair makes them look really spooky and works really well together. Something that wound up being trickier than I expected was colors. Looking at the initial design, she's only got black and red, and not much else going on. While that might have worked for a cute little sketchbook drawing, I feel like a lot of the cool new elements we've added to the design are gonna get lost in just a sea of black. So, the first thing I did was make her hair a more reddish brown and add a gradient to give it some more depth. Then, I opted to make the spooky markings on her skin a bit more of a bluish black for contrast, and blurred the edges to add a bit of a different texture to separate it from the clothes. Lastly, I used both black and a super deep gray to color her outfit, switching back and forth between them to make sure the elements stand out. And voila! Lady Delanis is complete. Honestly, I remember not giving her much thought as a kid. I was just like, well, I need a bad guy, and now I've got one. But now it's like, oh, she's so intimidating. I love her. I really like how her grungy look contrasts the crisp and clean Koko and really establishes their relationship as enemies. Last but certainly not least, we have Ralt. Boy, I have no clue what my name reasonings were, but I feel like this is the silliest out of all of them. Anywho, I saved this particular one for last because I remember him being my favorite out of the three. I know I drew him much more than the other two. I even have this silly little doodle of him as a kid. Look at how tiny he is. I feel like my bias towards him was because he was the most interesting out of the three. While he is Koko's friend and appears human, he's secretly one of Lady Delanis' demons. Little me absolutely loved the melodrama this type of thing would have caused. It's Coke's duty to defeat the demons, but her sweet cinnamon roll friend is also one? Oh, it's so good! In my sketches, I tried to be very mindful of the backstory element and lean more into him having something to hide. Although I tried in the first sketch to keep him shirtless, I ultimately knew he needed a shirt. I even tried giving him an ultra deep V, but I ended up just going with a turtleneck. It looks so much cozier and goes with his personality better. Moving on to his weapon, because he of course had a ridiculous chunky sword with a scythe attached to it, I had to do a lot of weapon research before sketching. I ended up looking at a lot of cosplay prop version of Cloud Strife's sword, since it was about the right shape and it would be easier for me to see the different parts on a physical prop. After fiddling around, I ended up making the scythe part this retractable thingy on the end. How would it help in battle? Probably not much, but boy, it's there. For the final illustration, I went with this pose of Ralt smiling up at a falling feather. This is a little nod to this fourth character I opted to not do, but here's a little look at her anyway. I remember her and Ralt having some kind of strained friendship, so I thought the feather would be a cute nod to that. I also made it a point to have the sword in a relaxed position and pointing downwards, to show he's just a baby boy who doesn't want to fight. With the colors, I kept in mind the trick we used for Delanis and switched back and forth between varying blacks. I switched his necklace to just being gold, and I really like the way it brings out his eyes. I know the necklace had some kind of story significance, but I cannot remember what it was. No matter how silly a story is, make sure you write it down, kids. Once I have him colored, I decided we have to show off his spooky markings somehow, so I drew a little bust shot of him with his hair back and his spooky bone arm visible. I wasn't planning to at first, but then I realized there would be absolutely no way to tell if that was even a thing, so I added it in. I'm fairly certain this wasn't part of his original design. I think it was probably just I thought the hair over half the face was cool, but now it's cool and it has a purpose. And after adding in a background color, Ralt is done. I am so in love with how this turned out. He looks both cool and kind, and of course mysterious and spooky. If I were to go back though, I might add a tiny bit of color to the locket, like a few gemstones or something. It's hard to see the engraving on it and kinda just looks like a golden oval. Here's our 3 redesigned middle school OCs. Overall, I'm so happy with how they came out. They look as edgy and cool as I imagined as a kid, and it's awesome to see that realized. I feel like if I showed these to younger me, I'd be tootin' and hollering, just super happy. I think my favorite redesign out of the 3 is Ralt. I just love what I did with the outfit, as well as capturing his gentle personality much more successfully. Which redesign is your favorite? Let me know down in the comments. I'd also love to hear about your OCs for middle school too. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for joining me on this design journey. Be sure to subscribe for more silly art videos and ring that bell so you know next time I've gotten up to some shenanigans. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye bye!